Truth to be told, um, in my 42 years of living on this earth, through trial and tribulations that life bring to us, after going through so many challenges, so many failures, um, and finally see life for what it is, I am slowly discovering in my healing journey that most people um, they function um, under fear and insecurities that they tend to mask under forms of control, power, and resources. You know, before my journey of healing, most of the time I couldn't understand why people tend to manipulate others. I seriously could not comprehend why people they thrive through manipulations and um, and um, the power of controlling others. So by working on myself in the last 2 years, I'm slowly discovering why people um, they mask their fears and their insecurities um, so that they can keep thriving in this life. And most of the time, um, I'm realizing that the reason why those type of um, function living they don't provide either happiness or they are always short-lived, like you know people living under those circumstances, whether by driven by fears or either insecurities, most of the time they thrive through instant gratifications, um, like temporary shortly lived solutions, but they never feel happy with themselves. Like it's mind blowing. Because sometimes I couldn't really understand, like, if you see somebody who's really powerful, who is wealthy, like, they could have billions of dollars in their accounts, but they are always moody, they don't respect anyone, they are always, like, trying to disrespect anyone who was below them. To me, I don't know, I don't really, I wasn't understanding what was the drive um, reason behind those type of behaviors. Uh, but now that I am working on myself and learning about um, pattern behaviors, about mental health, um, I am slowly discovering why people they tend to live a masked life. You know, it does not make sense at all, but that's how the society is built. When you see, for example, like in professional settings, for example, like you see people climbing corporate ladders, but they still not feel satisfied with what they have. You see people trying to micromanage. You see people can control their stress levels, despite how much money they're making. But if you're making that kind of money at the expert um, at expense of your mental health, to your expense of your physical health, emotion health. Like, what's the point of making the money that you are not able to enjoy? What's the point of um, having that high profile employment where you're making money, but you are crying at your job? You are complaining um, all day long. You are not happy with um, how the situation is at your workplace. Like, I used not to really understand that. Or people who thrive to control others in the work settings, for example, like your coworkers who will find any single reason to try to control how you do your job or how you deal with your duties. Um, and sometimes when that happens, before my healing journey, I used to spend my time of explaining myself, of defending myself, and it was so draining and so destructive and pointless. But now that I am in the midst of my healing journey and I reflect back on those situations and how they could rise up, I can't help to see how much people tend to project whatever they are feeling in themselves around um, in the environment, especially to people they either don't like or people who they feel like they are under them for whatever reasons, and then tend to project those fears on those people. Before my healing journey, it was so difficult for me to understand why people they act that way. Um, but now, the more I get into the midst of my healing journey and understanding the human behaviors, understanding um, um, our mental health, how it's connected to emotional, physical, spiritual, and psychological health, now I understand why people like I don't know if I can use the verb like, but people tend to mask how they feel inside themselves. How people tend to um, function under fear and insecurities and mask it in the form of control and power. So it's such a relief to be able to finally understand those dynamics, and you have no idea how it's freeing and liberating, because I see myself how I deal with certain situations and such challenges that come to me. Now that I'm aware, I see a difference of how I deal with those situations at this moment versus how I used to deal with them. You know, before the healing journey, I would deal with those situations in terms of defending and explaining myself. But now that I'm in the midst of who I am and knowing what I can do and not do, and then how I have worked on my fears, I've worked on my insecurities, it is very easy um, to see people for who they truly are and not engage in whatever um, situation they might want to pull you through that has nothing to do with you. Like, when you see clearly that they're driven by fear or insecurities, um, I don't engage in those type of confrontations anymore. I just um, choose to back up and and observe it from a distance. And most of the time, I'm always accurate at what I'm seeing, and it always helped me to reflect back how it is so important to work on yourself and do it intentional, um, so that you can know how to separate yourself, to separate your identity uh, within the projection people tend to send to you, depending on how they are feeling and how they you want to feel better by putting you down. Yeah, so inner work is vital. Um, Now I see, um, I understand why it's really important to work on yourself, because it helps you to free yourself up um, from how the society sees you versus how you see yourself and the power you have within yourself. When once you know that power you have within yourself, it's very difficult for anyone around you to try to manipulate you or to use you or to make you feel less than, because you already know who you are, you already know what you are capable of. And when you know that, it makes it easier for you to know how to navigate those situations where people you are surrounded with, if they try to manipulate you or control you, you know how to deal with that effectively. So, yeah, that's one of the observation I've come across to see the reality of the life we live, and it helps me to understand and to see how important it is to work on ourselves. I hope this of this observation helps someone who's working on becoming better than themselves, um, and so that we can keep helping each other's healing properly and moving forward as a society. Thank you for listening.